Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us once again, a guy who is an expert in getting large amounts of gold for people, and also an expert in international derivatives. And those two subjects go hand in hand. What's going on today in the world of economics and crushing gold prices in the face of looks like a looming global war. I'm talking about Rob Kirby of Kirby Analytics. Rob Kirby, thank you for joining us today on USA Watchdog.
A pleasure to be with you, Greg.
Well, let's start. You said you wanted to address this, and you said, a couple of months ago that, I know for a fact gold's going up, and we've had this dip in the gold prices. And this morning, I just had somebody write me an email saying my wife won't let me buy any more gold. She thinks I'm crazy, and she thinks they can put this off forever. And you, in the pre-interview, you said, I know it looks like I have egg on my face, but gold and silver prices are going much higher. Explain that.
Well, gold and silver prices are going to have to go much higher, Greg. And what we've been experiencing, unfortunately, in real terms, and I do believe this will be for the near term, is we're experiencing something that's referred to as the emperor's new clothes. And this is an old cliche where a buck-naked leader convinced people that he was wearing new clothes. And people agreed that he was wearing new clothes because nobody wanted to be a dissenting opinion with the leader and didn't want to invite the wrath of the leader upon themselves. And the story, to bring this into modern times, I'm gonna equate this to the words of the infamous Mr. Karl Rove, who George W. Bush referred to as Turd Blossom, who made the statement once that the government had the ability to create reality. And the government is, in effect, because the actions on the paper price of gold and silver is who's behind this is the U.S. Treasury, acting in concert with the Federal Reserve and the commercial banks. And what they're doing is they're bashing the paper price of gold and silver down, even in the wake of unprecedented and record demand. Within the last week, we've seen days when the U.S. Mint has reported record sales of silver eagles. I think we had one day when there was over 23 metric tons of U.S. silver eagles sold. The Royal Canadian Mint, in their Maple program, has been cutting dealers back in their requested amounts to purchase because they simply can't produce enough physical coins to supply the demand in the marketplace. And we're seeing this transfer also into the institutional space because the world's largest physical metals market is now reputed to be the Shanghai Gold Exchange, where gold and silver are traded in physical. And we've seen the physical supply of silver on the Shanghai exchange. We've seen their silver stocks depleted by over 90% in the last year. And so what's going on measurably in the physical space, it has divorced itself from the paper price. And this has also been accompanied by a spike in the U.S. dollar, where the U.S. dollar seems to be the almighty and gaining strength. To anybody who gets caught up in the movement of the U.S. dollar in recent times, I would like to remind people what happens to a star just before it goes dark and dies. And because paradoxically, a star gets brighter just before it dies, and it goes into a phase called supernova. And I'd like to suggest to anybody that wants to pay attention that what's happening currently with the U.S. dollar, I would liken it to be have a lot of similarity to supernova, and it's the rise before it crashes or implodes into the ground. And this is what this fate is all but sealed for the U.S. dollar due to the mismanagement, the gross negligence of the guardians of the world's reserve currency, namely the U.S. Treasury and the corrupt criminal central banking system that's been doing everything in their power to perpetuate the longevity and the preeminence of the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. This simply cannot continue.
Part of the trade there is because people fear war in the Middle East and in Eastern Europe, and a lot of folks, there's protests in Hong Kong, pretty heavy protests that apparently it looks like the U.S. has had a hand in. It's been reported, at least in some areas, where the U.S. had a hand in the protest, the umbrella, the protest that they have, either spraying pepper spray on. Chinese are coming down pretty hard on these folks, and it's making people wonder about using the yuan. I mean, is that what they want to do? I mean, is that why the dollar is strengthening?
I'm going to suggest the dollar strengthening for that reason, Greg, plus a host of other reasons. Just remember that the global derivatives complex, which is some people say that the size and scope of the global derivatives complex is well through a quadrillion and maybe 2 quadrillion. The best data that we're given by the BIS says that the global derivatives complex is somewhere around 750 trillion. So whether it's 750 or 2 times or 3 times that, the important thing to take away from it is that it's all almost exclusively denominated in U.S. dollar and dollar product. And I liken the global derivatives complex to a price control grid. This grid, being all of its components being denominated in U.S. dollars, gives the people who run it the ability to reel the currencies around. Listen, every fiat currency in the world is nothing but a derivative of the U.S. dollar, and the U.S. because they're all expressed in terms of U.S. dollars. And that's what happens when you have a pure fiat system where no currency in the world is backed by anything that's real. So the controllers of the dollar system have control of the derivatives complex, and they have the ability to make currencies rise and fall almost at will. That is until real money enters the equation and people desire physical real money at the exclusion of any fiat money. And this is where we're headed at breakneck pace. This is why physical will trump fiat in the end.
And is this why they're bashing silver and gold prices down, to get people like the guy that wrote me this morning saying, my wife won't let me buy anymore, which is precisely what he ought to be doing if he wants to acquire metal, in my humble opinion. I don't sell metal on my site, but I think everybody, I've said this a million times, I think everybody should have some, depending for as an insurance policy, you should have some no matter what, gold and silver. But he is saying, hey, my whole family almost threw in the towel and sold all of our coins. And I wrote him back and said, don't sell, hold.
Yes.
But, I mean, is this why that we're seeing this big smackdown in the price of gold and silver in the face of big demand and big financial problems with Europe, and China's real estate market could crash, and the U.S. Financial market is we've got a 4.6% GDP revised up, but we have terrible consumer confidence numbers, terrible labor participation rates, terrible manufacturing order numbers. We just have terrible numbers, and there's nothing that really supports that. But this is why gold's getting smacked down. This is why silver's getting smacked down. It's not just a market function. It is a manipulation.
We have no markets, Greg. All we have are manipulations. The retail sales numbers that we're being fed are erroneous. I know people who are in retail, and I know people that have been in retail for decades, and they have told me that and they're well-connected people, and in retail, not just in Canada, but in the United States, retail has never been worse in the history of people that I talk to. We're being fed numbers that suggest the opposite. We're being told that the jobs picture is really good. The labor participation rate is hitting multi-decade lows. The number of people not working this month was increased by 315,000 to 92.6 million Americans not in the labor force. That's an all-time high. So numbers can be read and can be presented in ways to make things look the opposite to what reality would suggest. the empirical sales numbers of silver and gold coins is off the Richter scale. The drawdown in physical metal stocks at the major exchanges where physical is exchanged on an institutional basis has hit record lows, to the point where some of these exchanges might be forced to close for lack of supply of physical product. And this flies in the face of these empirically demonstrable outcomes, is flying in the face of the price action in the paper markets, which are controlled up till now anyway, largely by the Anglo-American banking complex, and it's just been a bash on the price, and they're trying to break the will of people. Basically, what they're trying to do, if you can equate it to this, we know that firestorms are coming, and they're basically trying to get everyone to cancel their fire insurance ahead of a firestorm. And this is tragedy, and to call this a conspiracy is an understatement. This is a criminal conspiracy, the likes of which the world has never seen. And you get a bit of a sense of this because I think in the pre-interview we were talking briefly about the actions of British Prime Minister Cameron, and he's trying to or speaking about having anybody who disagrees with government, anybody who is deemed to be a truther. They're talking about introducing new laws already in the United Kingdom that would make it illegal or a crime to have any contra point of view or opinion to government propaganda lines, which have shown to be completely and utterly false. So I mean, the people or the powers that be are digging in here, Greg, for a clash with humanity, and it's to say it's a conspiracy is like saying it's nightfall's going to come. It's ridiculous to make such statements.
He said to anybody that believed the 9/11 story, truthers for that, they should be treated as terrorists. I thought that was pretty heavy-handed. Also, the bombing in London, which a lot of people think was, a false flag. The July bombing years back was it was 07, I believe it is. Or the 7/7. Anyway, it's like 9/11. But I believe,
Greg, one of the major British dailies took that whole line of questioning or thought even further. I believe it, and it was an article today in the I believe the Daily Mail or something, and they were talking about having basically all internet chat groups, all communications, electronic communications, surveilled and censored. So, like what they're talking about, and they're talking about, at least in Britain anyway, they're talking about introducing sweeping new laws as early as maybe next spring. And the gist of the article, which I briefly read this morning, would indicate to me that the kind of discussion you and I are having in the very near future might actually be deemed illegal, and actions might be taken against anybody who would be engaging in the kind of discourse that you and I are having right now.
So every government story, any government numbers, like for example the unemployment rate in the United States, 5.9%, in which a lot of people say, oh come on, maybe 5. If you stop counting enough people, I mean we have record numbers out of the workforce. And also the big job growth, 4 out of 5 of the 248,000 jobs, 4 out of 5 were minimum wage jobs.
Well, just think about this, Greg. The people that say we are full of hooey are the very people that are contemplating bringing in new laws that would actually make the kind of discussion you and I are having right now would make it illegal. But yet we're deemed to be conspiracy theorists when we even mention or discuss such outright attacks on the First Amendment. This is just unbelievable. But this is reality.
Is this part of how the system is unwinding, a sign of the system unwinding? A lot of people, my family members don't even look at my site. I mean, I think it's too depressing for them. They have no idea what's going on. They don't want to know. They can tell you what the Carolina Panthers are doing. They can tell you, who's in the playoffs for the baseball for the World Series, or the American League playoffs and the National League playoffs. They can't tell you who the Treasury Secretary is. They don't want to know anything about, oh, well, everything's good. I mean, is this what you're talking about with Cameron, and talking about how, there's any dissension in speech, about the 9/11 and questioning the government stories and questioning government numbers, any of that speech, is that part of the way this unwinds, that we just get more and more of a police state because the situation is going to get worse and worse?
Absolutely, Greg. The parallels with what we're experiencing today are so clear, and so much like what was happening in Rome. As Rome was falling, people in Rome. I mean, it's documented history. In Rome, people were consumed with going to the arena to see the gladiators fight, and basically drunken orgies, where diversions were the way of the day. Anything to divert people's attention from the undermining of the empire, which was largely a financial debasement. Rome fell when they debased the currency. That's the major factor that was behind the fall of the Roman Empire. It was the debasement of the currency. We're seeing the same thing today. What's at the heart of all these issues? What's at the heart of all the trouble in the world right now is that the world's reserve currency has been debased to the point where it's going to go supernova. This is the whole illusion behind the strength in the dollar. The dollar isn't getting stronger. Just like stars aren't going to have longevity when they go supernova. They get brighter, so you might think that the star is becoming a more viable entity, when in reality it's the notion of it getting really bright before it goes supernova is exactly the opposite to the illusion of it getting brighter. It's what happens just before it goes black and dies.
Why are they doing all the lying about the numbers? Why don't they just pull the plug? I mean, why are they? They know they're not fixing it. They know that. They know this has never been fixed. They know that. They know what I know. They know what you know. So why the game? Why they're not fixing it? Why are they dragging this out? Why don't they pull the plug? And when are they going to pull the plug?
Well, I don't think they're going to willingly pull the plug, Greg. Or what they're looking to do is create a diversion where they can pose themselves as the savior, and it's people refer to it sometimes as problem, reaction, solution, and these people create the word false flag comes to mind. They create a false flag to deflect attention away from the underlying real problem, which is the debasement of the currency, and then they pose as the saviors, or the Johnny on the spots with the solution to the false flag that's been manufactured. And through this process, people tend to lose their civil liberties, and people tend to lose their in increments their freedom and their ability to be an opposition of any kind. And this is what we see going on in spades all around us. And absolutely, we're being set up for the eventual failure of the monetary system. The monetary system will fail, and it's only a question of when it fails. And the reason it's been protracted out as long as it has is because the people in power don't want to give up their reins and grips on power. And what they've already committed, Greg, is so atrocious that if they raise their hands and say you got me, the criminality that's already occurred is going to be exposed for what it is, and they're going to lose power, and they don't want that. So I wouldn't want it to happen to me either. But then again, I wouldn't be engaged in the kind of nonsense that has already transpired.
What about the wars in the new war that wars, Ukraine, Eastern Europe? That's a simmering financial war, and then also this new ISIS war. And when we knock them out of the box, then what happens? We just go home, or do we go and put all of our boots on the ground that are already there to go after Syria? Is that what we finally do?
No.
Whoever voted on taking Assad out, he's not a nice guy, and I'm not carrying his water, but, nobody ever discussed that we are going to take Assad out. Nobody ever discussed that. All of a sudden, we're in this, we have to take Assad out. Well, but first we have to take ISIS out. What happens after we take out ISIS, which is a global phenomenon?
I'm going to take it back even further than that, Greg. Ever since the dollar has ascended to the position of world reserve currency, the dollar or the let's just say the American order or the Anglo-American order has always needed a bogeyman. During the Cold War, it was the evil Soviet Union. When the Soviets became adventurous and went into Afghanistan, and were seen to be expansionists, the Anglo-American complex or their intelligence wings created the basically what became Al Qaeda, except in the days when the Mujahideen were fighting the Russian forces in Afghanistan. They were our friends. They became Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda was funded by American intelligence interests, and when this became evident, the Anglo-American intelligence establishment morphed the name of Al Qaeda into ISIS and ISIL. But the thing is, they always need a bogeyman, and now we've got Western leaders starting to speak that anybody who tells the truth about government indiscretions is now going to be labeled as a terrorist, along with libertarians in America, and along with Ron Paul supporters, and along with returning veterans, and along with people that want to own guns. Which is basically, I'm going to say the historic right wing in America. And what is referred to as the right wing in America now has basically, I see no difference between Republicans and Democrats in the United States. They're both of those parties have been occupied and are controlled by the globalist interest. The globalist interest is running America. The globalist interest is running, for that matter, pretty much every Western country, my country included. And these people want to create mayhem, and they want to create it's all about deflecting people's attention from the real issue of the day, which is the debasement of the currency. And it was the debasement of the currency that killed Rome. And they had their discretion, or they had their things to keep people's minds off of what was going on, in the big picture, just like we are having today. It's amazing how history repeats, and if it doesn't repeat, it certainly rhymes.
Well, at the end of the last interview, which we're getting to the end of this one, you said, I know for a fact gold's going to go up in the next 3 months. It was only a couple of months ago. And in the pre-interview, you said, I got egg on my face, but with this, but still gold and silver are going to go way up. Well, why do you say that? What is in the next 3 months? What was the time frame? What was the idea behind that time frame?
The reason I say this, Greg, is because I know people that are in the business of procuring massive amounts with mega money behind them in the physical market, in the physical realm. And I know that these people are still accumulating everything they can lay their hands on, and they can't lay their hands on enough to satiate the resources they have to put to work in that area. And you see, their ability to actually acquire physical metal is becoming harder and harder and harder as time's gone along. This is in spite of paper prices being knocked down, and this is in spite of turning on the business news networks and the mainstream media and having them report that people, you see, they conflate or confuse the paper price with the demand for real physical bullion, and they will erroneously report that people want less physical bullion. That's why the price is going down. And you see, and that's an abject lie, because the reality is people that are in the market for physical metal can't get enough, and it's being misreported, and we are being sold a bill of goods by our mainstream media. But the mainstream media is in bed with the ruling elites, and this is all part of this globalist takeover. And they are running the show. Right now they're running the show. But at the end of the day, physical metal will trump the paper.
When is it going to be? Do you think it'll be before the end of the year? And the other thing is, if these guys are so evil, I've had a lot of people ask me about this. So, question number one: do you think it'll be before the end of the year? Timing. What's the timing? And the second
I still think we see major dislocations before the end of the year, because I do believe that people who have contracted for physical metal are going to be denied their deliveries before the end of the year. And I think they go very public, and it's going to lay bare the abject fraud that's been occurring with the smash down in the paper price, and the disconnect between the paper price and the lack of physical metal. I believe is going to manifest itself in a big way before the end of the year.
In other words, people will say, "Hey, I got a contract," and they'll say, "Yeah, we can't fill it," and that's when the people who say, I had a contract for 5 million ounces or 1 million ounces or 500,000 ounces, whatever, of gold or silver, and they're going to go out public and say, they didn't deliver my metal.
Yes.
And you know people that are going to do that. That's their game plan.
Yes, I know people that when put in that position, that's exactly what they'll do.
They'll make it public that they did not get the gold or silver bullion they contracted for and were promised.
Yes, that's how it ends.
And that's coming this year.
I think it comes this year, yes. And, and at the end of the day, Greg, if I'm wrong about it not coming this year, it doesn't mean it's not coming. But I do think the fuse is that short now.
If not, 2015, for sure.
It's coming. It's coming.
Okay. And last question about confiscation. People are worried that, well, if these guys are so powerful, they'll just come to my house and take my gold or silver, or they'll just take my physical metal. What say you?
Well, if you think you're going to find my precious metal, good luck to you.
So do you think they're going to try to confiscate? I mean, aren't rich people, my contention is, aren't the people in power accumulating this? And
absolutely.
If they're in power accumulating this, are they going to pass a law that allows the government that they buy off to take their gold or silver?
Listen, the actions being undertaken by what we call leadership today are so off the rails, and that I put nothing past them. If they pass a law saying that they're going to confiscate metal, I won't be the first person in line to turn mine in. That's all I can say.
Well, but aren't they buying metal? Aren't the powers that be, the people, the Satanists, the weasels that are doing this stuff to us, aren't they buying metal?
I think a lot of them are. But I mean, I don't think they'll be turning theirs in any hurry either.
And I can't
so
see how
I'll have company.
But I can't see how they'll pass a law saying that we're going to turn all of our metal in. We're going to let it get confiscated. I mean, I think they might go the other way. They might say, "Hey, you can spend it as money," or not.
Well, listen, the powers that be, they have all kinds of laws on the books that they themselves aren't subject to. I mean, we have insider trading laws where if you or I insider trade, we go to jail. But I mean, Congress can insider trade, but they're not subject to the same law. The same thing with Obamacare. Commoners like you and I are subject to Obamacare, but Congress they have provisions where they're not subject to this. So I mean, to say that they won't pass a law, that you and I are subject to, because it could damage them, in reality, it doesn't work that way. They just give themselves free passes.
Rob Kirby, Kirby Analytics, coming to us from Canada. Rob Kirby of KirbyAnalytics.com. Thank you for joining us today on USA Watchdog.
My pleasure, Greg.